First of all, I would like to thank our organizers of this meeting to inviting me here. As you know, I'm quite often in Baku, but mostly on academic matters. Since there was a lot of talk about importance of the trilateral format, I probably would skip many things which I prepared before, not to repeat it again. But mostly what I would like to bring here, I would like to bring the challenges for the trilateral relations and to give some kind of more like Georgian perspectives on these issues. First of all, I think the important is when we're discussing the regional cooperation, we have to identify from where actually we started this, identify the region. As you remember, early 90s, there was a lot of discussion about South Caucasus. Was it a region or sub-region, or if it is a region, then why it doesn't have any kind of like cooperation? And there was a lot of comparison between, for instance, Baltic states and the Baltic region and then South Caucasus. Then there was a lot of discussion why, for instance, the Baltic region was successful model for transformation and why South Caucasus failed. And some people even questioned the, the notion that South Caucasus is a region, and they called it, if it is a region, it's a failed region. Actually, you may agree or disagree on this, but one thing is that unfortunately, from what we see in the last 20 years, we see not so much cooperation among the three countries most of the time, but sometimes they have divergent foreign policy orientation as well. But fortunately, Georgia and Azerbaijan were the two countries actually in the region who tried to cooperate based on the historical experiences, and I think that was really important in that sense. When we speak about the failed region, we have to also understand that each country of the South Caucasus, they have their own vision, how they see the future of the region, and sometimes sometimes their vision doesn't really match. For instance, if you look to the Georgian foreign policy, sometimes I have some kind of feeling that last 20 years, Georgian foreign policy, main goal of Georgian foreign policy was somehow disassociate itself from Russia and from post-Soviet space, which is, one can say this is mission impossible, but another can say this is actually what the Georgian foreign policy goal was and is last 20 years. At the same time, if you ask many people in Georgia, especially those from political elites, where Georgia stands in the regional cooperation model, how they see the future of the region. And of course, nobody questions that there's a very cordial and close strategic links between Turkey and Azerbaijan, Turkey and Georgia and Azerbaijan. But at the same time, Georgia is trying somehow also to link itself to the Black Sea region. And Black Sea region is some kind of like model to somehow to be closer to Europe. Europe, I mean, not the European Union per se, but as a Europe, Europe is a concept. So, and this is not the will of the elites only. This is the will of the people, if you see, and this is also a matter related to the identity, which I don't want to now discuss because it's we will go very further with these issues. And another important thing also is that for Georgia, if you look to the Georgia strategic documents, which was adopted last maybe like 10-15 years, you will see that most of the documents identify Georgia as a kind of like European state, even though sometimes Europe doesn't take it as a granted. And for instance, if you see the preamble of the negotiations which Georgia and EU actually drafted, they actually say that Georgia is an Eastern European country, even though I know that Georgian diplomacy was fighting for these words more than like last 5 years, that they wanted to change. And sometimes it's really strange how the European Union treat some post-Soviet countries. For instance, in case of Ukraine, they put Ukraine is a European country, and with Georgia, they put it like Eastern European country. So some may question this. Why is Ukraine is more European than Georgia? Does geography plays a role, or identity, or some other issues? But this is another matter of the discussion. But that's a very important thing for Georgia, especially right now when, as you know, Georgia is about to sign the association agreement with the European Union. As you know, last year we initiated association agreement with EU, which is kind of challenge for Georgia. And to say frankly, these tragic events in Ukraine actually played somehow important role for Georgia, because I don't see in realistic terms that European Union would be so quick to address the Georgia's quest for European integration unless there was this tragic events in Ukraine. And this is actually the first time that actually Georgia benefited from, benefited in the brackets, like from some other countries, tragical events. It was all the time the Georgia who was actually pushing the region towards, like integration and towards more integration to the West. And that's unfortunately, as we can see, that European capitals, I think they realized that, the time which we have until the association agreement, I hope, inshallah, we will sign it in before the August, as European Union leaders announced. But I think this period, starting from now to August, will be very challenging for Georgia, and I think this will be also important for the region, especially for Azerbaijan as well. Because, as you know, if you look to what's going on in the region, especially in the terms of, this idea of the Eurasian Union and all other concepts which is coming from Moscow, which is also kind of threatening the independence of post-Soviet countries, including Georgia and Azerbaijan. I think in that sense, what we see is that there was definitely some pressure on some post-Soviet countries, and we saw that how this could be used, especially in case of Armenia, which was actually forced to change its foreign policy orientation, basically, and we can see what's going on in Ukraine. So I think even though the present Georgian government doesn't believe it, but and they believe that there's not so much Moscow can do anymore in Georgia, I think this is wrong, because Moscow still enjoys a lot of political pressure on Georgia, especially if we take into consideration the situation with the frozen conflicts and with the regions of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. I think in that sense, these several months until August will be crucial for Georgia, and if Georgia succeeds to association agreement, I think that can change a lot in the region in decades. Of course, it doesn't mean that after association agreement Georgia will be like heaven, and this is just beginning of the very difficult and painful phase of the integration with the EU. But I think it, in general, I think everybody in the region will benefit, and especially Azerbaijan, which is actually, as a Georgian, we always felt that, even though Azerbaijan has its own terms with the Eastern Partnership and with the European Union, we always felt that Azerbaijan is behind of Georgia in any events, including NATO integration and European Union integration. Also, there's some other important issues probably which we should pay attention. This will be the post-Afghanistan, withdrawal of the NATO troops there, and I think the Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey has really can play some role, and especially if this the project with BTK will be accomplished, and I think it's all countries can benefit from this, and it's not only economical benefit, but it's I think it's more like political benefits. And as we know, the Georgia and Azerbaijan are very active and a contributor to the Afghan mission. So I think it's also a really important issue. And as to other challenges, I would like also to challenge several notions that we sometimes heard about the friendship between Georgia and Azerbaijan and Georgia and Turkey. This is true, and you know, we have a very good interstate relationship. But I think in order to have a success, we need to not only institutionalize these links, but we also need to change this paradigm, and we need a little bit to go a little bit deeper and to have some kind of exchange between societies. And I had a privilege to teach the Azeri students in Tbilisi State University when they come, mostly from ADA. And then also when I come here to teach in ADA, I sometimes see, you know, that we, even though we are very close politically and strategically, we have some kind of stereotype still. So I think what we need is, if we need to change this paradigm, and if we need a kind of close partnership between these countries, including Turkey also, I think we need really to change the attitudes toward the education. And I think we need a little bit more interaction between young people and young you know, citizens. And there could be a lot of ideas. For instance, the three countries can have some kind of joint fund which can promote some kind of exchanges between these countries. And there's a lot of good examples to look at in European Union, actually, and they have a lot of quite well-developed so-called cross-border and cross-regional cooperation plans, which we just need to adopt to the regional framework. And I think in that sense, a lot of must be done. Also, there is some issues like if we really need to make these contacts. We also need to improve this cross-regional cooperation, especially in the bordering regions. And I think in that sense, Georgian-Turkish border is really a remarkable success. If you look at what's going on there, this is like unbelievable. Nobody could believe that maybe like 20 years ago that there will be such a trade and such an open border. For instance, most of you probably know that Georgian citizens can, they don't need even the international passport. You just need an ID card just to pass the Turkish border. I think this is the good way, and this is actually the good case study which we need to promote in the region. And I think in that sense, there's lots can be done in the region, especially in the bordering regions. And we need to promote also, you know, exchanges between universities. And I know that it was already mentioned, there's some interaction through Erasmus and some other Tempus and some other European Union funded project, but this is not enough. I think we need more kind of direct contacts between the universities and between the young people, so they should know a little bit more about the countries. And for instance, to have some kind of you know, study tours in each country, and that can change this stereotype. I think in that sense, there's a lot of other issues which is on the table between these countries. But generally, I would say that we should, even though the political situation can change in countries, we should remember that, as it was already mentioned here, that the strategic choice and the strategic friendship between these three countries, actually, it's not a, it was not, it is not supported only by elites, but this is also supported by the people. And the good example is, I can take here is that I remember that after the recent election in Georgia, when I came in Baku, some of my good friends here, they were a little bit like cautious how the new government actually addresses some issues related to the regional cooperation. And even that time, I didn't question it, even though there can be some kind of changes between the old government and new government. But the strategic friendship between the countries is, I don't think that it's questionable. And if you look to the how even though there was some kind of chaotic, some kind of zigzags at the beginning from the new government, which is, I don't want to call it anymore new government, but I think it's after some time they just realized that there's a national interest behind of this, and the country cannot change. And if you look to the visit of the Georgian president, first visit his first official visit was in Turkey, second was in Azerbaijan. So I don't see that there's much change. And if you see that there was the same kind of some kind of misunderstanding at the beginning when Mikhail Saakashvili became president. Some people in Baku, I remember they were also a little bit kind of cautious how this development, how this can have some kind of influence to the bilateral relation. But as we see after a while, it didn't change. It even became stronger. The Georgian Azeri bonds and even Turkish-Georgian cooperation became, even on higher level. I think there's this is just a reminder that, this friendship between the nations not only belonging to the elites, but it is actually, we need to make it stronger on the societal level. I think there's many other issues which we can discuss here, but since there's a time pressure, I would be happy to answer some of the questions in the Q&A session. Thank you very much for your attention.